one now, George. Take one.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting stressed out.
I know. Now that he knows he won't be able to perform.
Oh, you hit me.
Well, of course, I'm supposed to explain what intarsia and segmentation is. I'll start with segmentation. It's a little bit easier as far as making it is concerned. However, I'm not much of a painter, so I hate painting them. But this is segmentation. With this, I can take a pattern and put it on one piece of board, and you cut everything out from that one piece of board. Then you shape all your parts, and when you get ready to put them together, you paint them, and then glue them all together. So it's just a lot of little pieces of wood all glued together. With intarsia, it gets a little more complicated in that you've got to get your pattern onto your wood somehow. And because you can see here, I use a blue tape on my wood. And some people don't like that because they like to see the grain through it, but I usually look at my grain and figure my pieces out prior to gluing them on there. And I put the tape on there. That makes it so much easier to take off. If you don't do that, when you get ready to take that pattern off, you've got to soak it with paint thinner or something to dissolve the glue. Then that means when you take it off, you've got the paint thinner and the glue all down in the surface of the wood. You've got to go back and clean the wood and all that. So this makes it a lot easier. You can also use a clear tape so that you can see the grain where you're putting it. Grain is real important in the intarsia. You remember, like you made a horse head. It has a big neck, and if you get some real pretty grain in that, it just makes it jump out. You can see two pieces of intarsia. One where they were real careful getting the grain running in the right direction on each piece, and another piece where they just stack almost like this. They put it on there and cut back. But intarsia is not extremely hard. My wife says I have more patience than anybody she's ever seen not to have any patience. I have no patience with people. But with wood, if it doesn't do what I want to, I throw it in the trash and start all over again. And she thinks I've got patience. I want her to see that box over there and show her what real patience is.
No, I worked it out 20 years ago.
One of the main things about your intarsia is choosing the color of wood you want to use. I use a lot of cedar because in cedar you can get a medium light, a medium, and a medium dark. Sometimes you can get a little darker one. But when it goes real light, I go to something like aspen. Holly is good too. Holly's a little whiter than aspen, but it's a little harder to work. And if I want to go darker than that, I go to walnut. And I'm fixing to work on something now. Marcus and I were over at Hardwood Incorporated the other day, and they had some Peruvian walnut. And Peruvian walnut, when you spray your finish on that, it turns almost black. And what I'm fixing to make, if it turns out this way, is a black panther. And so I'll be using that on all of it. The little parts that require blacker than that, I will use. I'll stain the wood. That's the only time I stain anything. You know, on this marine emblem out here, it's all intarsia, all what I call intarsia, because it's all different colors of wood used on that. Generally, as you see here, I use no paint or stain. But like on that, I could not afford to buy enough ebony to make all the black on that. And somebody suggested I use shoe polish. So believe it or not, I took the wood and put liquid shoe polish on it, and it looks like ebony. It finished off real nice. But you can see by looking at this piece, these are the pieces I use to make these dolphins. You see the grain. Excuse me. You see the grain we have in here. That shows up real well on something like that. And always when I cut, glue my pattern on this. I use a 3M77 glue because I want something that's more or less permanent that'll stay with it. And once I put those on, then I can cut each piece out of the various ones. And when I cut when I start cutting, these are the pieces I had left over from the one I started with. I keep these on hand because invariably you get half through putting one together and find out you missed a piece or you messed up a piece and you got to go back and get another one. If you put those back in the bin, you go over there and try to pick out the same thing you've got, it's almost impossible because I've got little bins about this size full of little pieces anywhere from this size on up to that size. And I use scrap whenever I possibly can. In order to get your pattern onto the wood, the way that most people do it, and the way it's recommended in most of the books, they take the pattern and lay it on the wood. They get it laid on there just like they want it, and they slide a piece of carbon paper between it, maybe put tacks on it or something, slide the carbon paper between it, and actually trace that pattern onto each piece of wood. And that gets a little bit tacky after a little while. It's hard to do because your pen or pencil has a tendency to follow the grain sometimes, so it's hard to cut the piece accurate. And I used that for a while when I first started. A lot of the old stuff I've got, I did it that way. Another way of doing it, and this way I have never done, Marcus has done it this way, is to actually run about 5 or 6 copies of your pattern, and then you take a pair of scissors. You want to show them what you do on that? Okay.
Very good.
You take your scissors. You take a masterpiece like this, preferably, and put it aside. And as you cut a piece out, you highlight it with your yellow pencil so you can see that's what you've cut. Because you've got like 2 pieces here, and both of those pieces are white, but the grain on this one runs this way, the grain on that one runs that way, so you can't cut them out together and just stick them on the wood. It's not as complicated as it sounds, but that's another method of getting your pattern on your wood, and it's a little more accurate because there you're following the lines of the pattern as opposed to a pencil line. And several years ago, I learned a little bit about, with the help of Ken Vickery and Bob Brokaw, I learned a little bit about the Delta CAD on my computer. And so any pattern that I use now, even if I buy a pattern from somebody, I will take that pattern and put it in my computer. I'll retrace it so that I can separate the parts. And what we do there, for example, this is a pattern of the 2 dolphins. Now I've taken each one of those parts and separated them and put them on a different sheet. Now when I get ready to make put it on the wood, because all the parts are marked. By the way, they're all numbered too. You want to be sure and do that. Not real important on one this size, but when you get one of the big pieces, got a couple hundred pieces in it, it's very important. They're numbered, and it has, like here you see it says MD, that's medium dark. That'll be cedar. This one's light. Now, you can use, that's something else. You can vary these things as much as you want to. You'll notice. You'll notice. Sorry.
No, you're good.
You'll notice on these 2 Intarsia pieces up here, Judy Gale Roberts came down and she made that one. And of course, Judy Gale's been in the business for many, many years, and that's where we get a lot of our patterns. She made that one and also gave us the patterns for that. I already had the pattern. I had bought it sometime before, and I had made one. But what's her name?
Joy.
Yeah, Joy. Joy Thomas took the pattern home, and she came back a few weeks later with that one. And I think she did an excellent job on that. Another good Intarsia person in the group is Rick Pugh. Some of you have seen some of his work. He brought it in. In fact, he changed me a little bit on some of my finishes. He finished it off so pretty, made mine look bad. So I started using 400 sandpaper now. I never had used anything over 120. 220 was about the most finest I'd ever used. So he's real good at it also.
George, the reason for when you're doing it, don't have the AutoCAD and don't have all that. the reason for doing so many patterns is because when you cut them out, you can't, when you cut out one piece, you gotta throw it away because the piece next door has to be on a new sheet.
Yeah, well, yeah. In other words, you might cut from this one sheet. From this one sheet, you might cut, say, this piece out of it, and this piece, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. That's why you want a masterpiece that you mark it so you know what you've cut. Then on the next piece, you cut the one next to that one, and so forth until you get them all cut out. And it is time consuming and kind of aggravating to keep up
And your
with.
grain's gonna dictate how many copies you have, because you can't just glue that copy down to get that one piece.
Yeah,
So you gotta cut it out, and you say, well, I need that dark piece in the middle, but you can't, so you're gonna have to cut off. So let's read this table. One sheet for the light, one for the dark, and then you can turn it to the grains you should mix.
last time we went up to Judy Gale Roberts' studio, I started talking to her about doing her patterns like this. I think she would get a lot more business if she made it a little easier for people to use it. She wasn't too happy about the idea. In fact, we had quite a discussion over that, and later Bruce was telling me about something happened. I said, I don't remember that. He said, that's when you were over there trying to tell Judy Gale how to do Intarsia. I wasn't trying to tell Judy Gale. Judy Gale Roberts practically brought Intarsia back 20 or 30 years ago. Her dad had done some, and she was the artist, so she drew the patterns for him. And Intarsia pretty well died out, and she started drawing the patterns and selling the patterns, and she brought Intarsia back. Yes, Mickey.
How much time do you spend putting the patterns on the wood?
Putting the pattern on the wood?
For one of these pieces, how much time you use just pattern on the wood?
Just putting the pattern on the wood, I mean, it's just a matter of taking this piece right here and cutting around each one of those pieces.
And you glue it on?
And just glue it on, just stick it on. It doesn't take long, 30 minutes maybe.
You know, patterns was a real problem for me on something like this right here. And they were getting so complicated that I wouldn't do it if I couldn't get it done in a hurry. This box, I did the whole box pattern in less than 5 minutes.
Is that right? But you put the whole pattern on, you don't have to take parts like we do on this.
And then you heat it on, don't you?
No. Make a laser copy. I use an inkjet printer, so
Okay.
those don't work.
Okay.
I take that and make
Oh, yeah.
a laser copy, and put the laser copy face down on the wood, and take it so it doesn't slip. Get you a small cloth and dip it with lacquer thinner, and rub the back.
You actually transfer the
Transfer
pattern to the
that
wood.
whole pattern to the wood.
So it's a reverse of what the pattern shows when you...
Yeah, if you got numbers and letters, you gotta have a mirror image to do it.
That would be a...
Carpet paper, if you do that on basswood, it'll soak into that wood. Only way you get it off is sand about a 1/16 of an inch off. If you're gonna trace, you ought to use carbon, graphite paper.
You got that clear paper. I put that over the
Like that.
pattern and trace that, and then I spray it. It gets real foul, so it'll wrinkle on you if you just a piece and carefully put it on your glue tape. When I first started, Hans helped me out tremendously because I didn't know nothing about it, so I just sprayed the whole thing with 77 and glued it on and took me. And I was doing fret work, and you try to clean out all them pores with that glue in it. You know? So I just put the damn saw in the basement for about 3 years, and then I met George. He gave me his cell phone number, and he hated that since.
Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I gave him a cell phone.
You can change it.
But if I understand exactly what you're saying, you put this on the pattern, you trace the pattern on this, then
Glue that to my piece of wood.
you cut the piece, you trace each part on this.
Yes,
So you end up with the same thing we have here.
yeah. I find it better because you can see, but if you use your carbon, but it's preference of what one like. But the best deal is you give them that individual pin out and then gluing that very helpful.
With graphite paper versus carbon paper. Because graphite has
It's just like,
pencil.
it's just like a pencil mark, you can erase it.
Yeah.
But if you use this process I just described, it's on that permanent, you have to carve it, you have to carve the lines off. It's still working.
Oh, for yours, I mean, because you can put it all at one time.
But do you drink?
Sometimes I just,
Well, I say I couldn't do that. I don't drink, my hands get too nervous.
You can see the importance, looking at one like this, the number of pieces we have in this one. You can see the importance of numbering those pieces because now I've taken the cover off of that. That's going to fall apart, so I'll have all the fun of putting it back together when I get home. But here's one that I made this week so I could show you. This is one when it's just been cut. You see all I generally cut everything out of 3/4 inch material. Now if I've of pieces that are only going to be 1/2 inch or 5/8 of an inch, I might run the board down to 5/8 or 1/2 inch before I put the pattern on it. But with small pieces like this, I'll make everything 3/4 of an inch. If I need to go back and reduce the thickness of that, I'll just cut it 1/2 in two and put it back on here. And as you can see, this one. This one is as it was when I first cut it out. All I did here, I took each piece and I used a drum sander. This is a drum sander with a foam backing on the sandpaper, and you just take those pieces and run them on that drum sander like that and sand them down. Of course, it also takes hand sanding on each piece. I cut each piece of sandpaper into 4 parts, and then I fold those parts into thirds, and it gives you a good size to work with. So you take something like this, just take that sandpaper and just finish off the edge. And every edge on Intarsia does have a little bit of sanding done to it. If you take 2 pieces that like this, now these 2 pieces fit together, but they don't look finished. But if you round both of those edges a little bit, then it looks finished. Also, if you have a little problem in cutting them, and you don't have as good a match as you would like to have, if you round them a little more, it gives you more shadow and it covers a lot of mistakes. And,
Mention to them, George, what size blade you use and when.
most of the time on this, I started out using the number 7 blade, but here again, number 7 is a little bit large, and it takes a little more wood out of it. When you cut these parts, you notice I've got really fine lines on there. Because if you're tracing them and you get a sort of a heavy line, cutting is critical. And you can take a heavy line, you can cut on the right side of that line, or the left side of that line, or down the middle of that line. If you don't do it on every piece the same way, then you have to do some sanding to get them to fit together. By using the real fine lines like that, when you get through cutting this part, you shouldn't see any red on either piece, the piece that you cut or the other one. If you follow that line, I guarantee they'll fit together like this fits. And once you get to this stage, now next stage on this one is gluing the parts together. And with that, you always start with in this case, I would put this little one together on the backboard. Your risers, it's shown on the pattern as well. You have a riser for this one. It's about 1/4 inch. So you cut a piece of plywood or most anything you want to fit under this, but be sure and cut inside the line so that it'll fit down in that hole and not throw it off any. But I would glue this piece together on that riser, and then when I start gluing the rest of it, I can just drop it in there. But with a big piece, you start somewhere in the middle area and work your way out. That way, if you've got if you run into a little bit of a problem, they're not matching quite like they should, by the time you get out here, you can adjust those pieces and make them match. If you start from the outside and come in, you get in there and start trying to fit them up, you run into some big problems.
What kind of glue do you use to glue them together, George?
I use tacky glue, Aleene's tacky glue. I discovered Aleene's tacky glue several years ago when a friend of a friend who had two young daughters, bought a dollhouse and was going to put it together Christmas Eve to give to the children on Christmas morning. And he found out that wasn't going to work. And he asked me and my wife to put it together for him. And it took us about 2 or 3 weeks, both of us together, to put the thing together. And the tacky glue has enough stickiness to it, it's thick enough that you can take a small piece of, say a piece this size, and put some tacky glue on it, stick it on the wall, and it'll stay there until it dries and sticks. So it holds it together real well. So when I start sticking this together, I'll only put the tacky glue on the sides of each piece and stick them together as I go like this. After you put the tacky glue on and get this piece all put together, in about 15 to 20 minutes, it's dry enough, not dry enough to do a lot with, but you can actually pick it up, set it onto a piece of wood like this, trace around it, and then after you trace around that, you go back and come inside about a 1/16 of an 1/8 of an inch, not real critical, and draw your other line, and you follow that line. You want that to be slightly smaller than the outer area of this. And that's your board packet. This is the back of.
Mention the wax paper, George, that you put on top of your
Oh, yeah.
pattern.
You notice I have wax paper on here, and the reason for that, of course, is as I glue it together, some of that glue is going to go down on the bottom. You can see it on the top and wipe it off, but it'll go down to the bottom. When you start taking that off, you have to literally peel it off sometimes because the glue will stick to that. If you had it on the paper, then you'd have to sand it off or something, and you don't want to have to do that because that glue gets all in your sanding belt and it don't last long that way.
And it also protects your pattern when you put your part together to match up on your pattern. It don't distort your pattern that glue on.
Mm-hmm. True. Once I get this all glued together and get my backer board, I'll take the backer board, put it down, and you can either put the glue on now there I switched to the yellow glue. I don't know why, I just started out that way. I guess this is more expensive, so that's why I did it. And I put the yellow glue either on this or on the back of that Intarsia, put it together, sit it on a flat surface, and in most of the books you'll see somebody, they'll have little pieces of wood sticking out and have all these clamps, they'll have 10 to 12 clamps all the way around this thing trying to clamp it down. I found out that if you get something like this is chill shot. I don't know whether I can afford it today or not. I bought that several years ago. It comes 25 pounds to a bag. Of course, you can make your own, maybe use sand or something. It comes 25 pounds to a bag, and I had 5 pounds taken out of each one of them. I got 4 of them. I should have taken a little more. It's not quite as flexible as I would like it. But when you get this glue, you get the glue on there, you put that on there, that doesn't just hit the high spots, that hits all the low spots as well, because that goes down in there and sticks it real good. And having 4 of those, if I got a big piece, I put 4 of those on. I don't have many pieces bigger than 4 will hold it, because that's 20 pounds each. That's 80 pounds I can put on each Intarsia.
You could probably use a vacuum bag for that too, couldn't you?
A what?
A vacuum bag, put it in a vacuum bag and pull it
Yeah,
down.
I imagine you could. I don't have one, so I don't know how to use that, but it would be a good idea. As long as you keep it from slipping, that's the main thing. Every once in a while, I'll put the bag on, and I realize later when I put it on, I must have done it like this instead of dropping it straight down. And I go back and you see some of the backboard sticking out. Of course, it's just a matter of going back to scroll saw and cutting that off. Not much of a problem.
That lead shot nowadays, you buy it, it's $20-something for each bag there.
Is it? But it's well worth it, because you use more than $20 worth of clamps around one like this size, and so I had somebody here that I offered to give them give them the 5 pounds out of each bag if they would cut them down for me. And she cut them down and made herself a bag. She got one out of it. But that's what that looks like when you finish it. This one's been, see, it's got hangers and I did this one in 1999. This goes on my bathroom door at home. My wife's gotten accustomed to seeing this stuff. You can stand anywhere in my house and look around, you'll see some kind of intarsia anywhere you look. Do we have any questions concerning how to do it?
I don't think those sanding drums with a soft inside, you think it's possible you could hook one of them to a lathe?
Sure. And Judy Gale Roberts sells those.
Yeah.
That would be an ideal place to use one.
I've seen that in her book, but I didn't know whether I could adapt it or not.
Well, I bought a grinder motor from Lowe's. In fact, she told me what model to get and everything else. And on one side I have the sander. On the other side I have, she calls it a wonder wheel. What it is a I don't know what it's made out of, but it's a grinding wheel that you take and cut down to a V shape. And I don't have anything here with it on it, but some of the things I do.
You'll probably see it in the
Oh, yeah,
record, what she got there.
She uses it quite well. See all the little grooves in this? You can look at it when you get a chance. But she takes that, and with that wheel, she just takes it and just taps it right like that, and it puts little grooves all in it. And as it wears down, you can resurface it.
George, explain to them how important that hold down is when you go into a point to sand out and round.
Oh, you're talking about this?
Yes.
Yeah, I hadn't even mentioned that. Oh, by the way, what I use for gluing my pattern on, I have one of these sitting on my trash can, and just lay the pattern parts on here and spray it. And after you use it a little while, it gets to looking like this. That's a build-up of glue. But it actually works better with the glue on this, because when I put the part on it, it sort of sticks to that a little bit, and you don't have to be quite as careful spraying it. With a new one like this, you put it on, you better spray straight down, otherwise you'll blow it completely off.
George, curious question. When you cut your pattern pieces out, do you cut them out with scissors or a knife or?
Scissors. I just take
You ever
that.
get cramps?
I get cramps all the time. No, it's not that bad, because, well, it depends on how many you've got to cut, I guess. But you can cut a few and work a while and then come back and cut some more. I get cramps from just holding it on the scroll saw. If I work, sometimes I'll work 4 or 5 hours sitting in that scroll saw, and all of a sudden I realize my fingers drawing up like this, and I'll work it out a little bit. This is something that you can get away without these pieces of equipment, but if you make something like this, it comes in real handy. If you're sanding a small part, leaving something that small, you can take this, and I might add, if you use one of these clamps very much, look at these clamps he has out here now. The one I had on there before, I had to keep readjusting this all the time. This one's adjustable for just any thickness. It'll go around and clamp that, or to clamp 3/4 inch pieces like that. Also, in a lot of these pieces, you have inside cuts. Like the eyes and things, and like I said, everything has, you take the edge off of everything. So if you have an inside cut, you put it on here, run your, and you can.
Hey George, you could use that as your inside cut.
Yeah, let's
Show it.
For example, if I wanted to sand the edge of that, then you can take a piece of sandpaper like this, and if your wife's not looking, you use her scissors and cut your strips out of it, and just run this through there, and you just go around it like this, and And that's about all it takes, just a little bit, just enough to round those edges off a little bit. So that's been a real handy tool for me there.
Recommend to them, the one that comes with that clamp down is a pivot piece. And we went to using that solid ball because the thing.
That's true. If you buy one of these and you're going to use it for small parts, it's okay for large parts where you can use a thing about that big around. But it has a flat surface that pivots, rocks back and forth, and we couldn't, when you put a small piece in like this, the thing was so big it covered most of the piece. You couldn't put a small piece in. So we bought these and replaced it with that.
Is that contraption something that you built or you bought
Yeah,
it?
I built that.
Built?
Well, ones that like to do this, copy that, because that, like he mentioned how he holds the does cutting, that could also benefit him there, because he could put it on a board and, I can't tell him how to do anything, but anyway, it's real helpful for us in doing our singing.
Turn that around, George, and show them that it also has an air suction on the backside.
You'll never fill it up with dust.
It has a port for that. However, I never use it because the amount of dust you get from this will settle on here or go down. I cleaned it out this morning before I put it in the car. But this panel comes out. It's made so that panel comes out. Of course, in the dust that goes down through those holes will catch in that. You just vacuum it out once a year and you got it covered.
George, also, you're doing small parts and you're doing them on the scroll saw. How do you eliminate them from going through the hole?
I use a refrigerator magnet.
I thought you had it on your saw. That's why I was looking. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your saw had it on it.
No, I don't have one on it. I forgot about that. Most of you have these magnets that these advertising insurance companies and people like that send you that stick on the refrigerator. You take one of those and just run it up on the blade like this. No tolerance, because a lot of the parts that I cut, you can see these little pieces like this, or the eyes and things like that. If I cut that on there, all of a sudden it would disappear down through there. And of course, with all the dust, it's better now since Marcus made this. That helps a lot. But it used to go down on the floor, down with all the dust that was down there. And naturally, they'll run under something. And
when you are sanding, make sure you got a little screen behind your suction thing behind, because you'll drop a little piece in your duct system.
yeah, he's talking about on the sanding drum. You take a small piece like this, and you take it and run it on that sanding drum right quick like that. If you're not holding it right, it'll snatch it out of your hand, and it goes back like that. Of course, where my sanding drum is, there's all kind of things down under it. So sometimes I've had it do that, and I just go get me another piece of pattern and cut another one out. It's easier than trying to find it. So what I did, I hung a old towel up behind it. So when it hits that, it drops down, I can find it. And I've also got a screen over my dust collector right behind the thing, so little pieces can't go through that. You think of anything else?
Has anyone made the dolphin that we did the other Monday night? That was here.
So for you turners, I know a lot of you turners have, a lot of you have scroll saws. And if you'd like to try something, here's about 8 copies of the patterns for the dolphin, and it's a good item to learn on. And if you want one, come up and get it and take that. And if you have any problems, you got my card, everybody's got my number. Just call me, I'll be glad to help you. Or you come around, you can bring it around to my shop. We'll make one together. I'll see that you make it in my shop.
What was the type of cedar that you used?
It's Western cedar.
Western?
I use a lot of cedar because, like I said, you can get different tones in it, and I also use the aromatic cedar, which is a red cedar, or in the red parts I've got. In fact, I've made some of these inlays for a guy, and he wanted them red and white instead of walnut white. I used my cedar for that, and he says it's pretty successful. I didn't know how well it would turn, but apparently it turns pretty good too.
Where do you have your glue in there, George? What's that glue thing there?
Oh, this? Well, that's a little design of mine too. When you're using glue, you know, you use a little bit and you stand it up like that, and then you start to use it again, you got to shake it down. First thing you know, you got it all over your wall and your floor and your cabinet and everything else. So I put it in here, and a lot of times I'll just put a little piece of, of course I haven't lately, I'll put a little piece of wax paper in there, so if it drips, I can just pull the wax paper out and throw it away. And I also have two little sticks that I use to spread it with. I'll take the glue. Actually, I'll take the glue now most of the time, and I'll put a pile of it on a piece of paper, and I'll use my sticks to just pick some up and put it on smaller parts when I'm putting them together, particularly when I'm doing those inlays because they're so small. And on something like this, I can just take this and squirt it. There's a place here for the cap. And squirt a little bit on that, stick those together, and stick the cap back on and put it in there. Any questions? You'll get out early.
Not too early.
Well, anybody's interested in making one of these, I'll be glad to work with them. If you're interested in drawing your own patterns, we had a pattern the other day. We went down to the copy shop. The pattern was about this big, and I had them reduce it down to 8.5 by 11. Well, 8.5 by 11, I can put it on my scanner, scan it into my computer, and I trace it whatever size I've got there. Then if I want to change that size, I can change it in the computer. And if I want to go back to this size, then I just change the size, and it may print out on 6 or 8 or 10 sheets. All you have to do is put the sheets together and stick them together, and you've got your big pattern.
Which one of the functions in Delta CAD are you using to do the tracing? I mean, I've looked on that screen, all the different ones you could select, and I hadn't figured out yet how to.
Well, you got to get your picture in there first. And when you fire it up and you come up with a blank screen, if you've got a picture, you can transfer onto that blank screen. That's your first. That's where you put your picture. And I'll take something like this and scan it in, get the picture in there. Then you can put a blank sheet over that picture, literally. I mean, that's what it amounts to. And when you put that blank page over that, then you go to your tracing. You go to
Just drawing a line?
yeah, well, it's a line, but it's I can't think what they call it now, but so it'll follow it. And you
Just make a bunch of short lines.
no, it's a
Continuous line.
what?
Say it's a continuous line.
No, it'll curve. It'll curve. You take a curve like this. You click here. You click there and there and there. Or if it's an even curve, you can click here and here. When you click over there, you'll see that line just form like that.
Okay.
It's a wonderful program. And if you know.
I've used that, I didn't.
That's how he's tracing it then.
Mm-hmm. And of course, when you're tracing,
That's what I thought he was doing. That's what I thought he was doing too.
So tracing and that.
when you're tracing on that, you can see how hard it would be to get these little parts in the eye. You can actually increase that and let eyes that big on the screen. So it makes it easier to trace, and then you can reduce it back down if you want.
I can't think of the name of it now, but there's the free program that's out there that'll do that similar thing that's on the web.
SketchUp?
No, it's not. I don't know if it's SketchUp. Is it SketchUp that'll do that? But anyway, they said there was one out there that will do like he's doing. You put a dot, a dot, a dot, and then the dots will connect. And then and I noticed you prefer to cut red or blue versus black.
It's easier on the eyes. You got that little black blade, and you got a little black line, You start tracing it, first thing you know, your eyes start doing this. I also like my lights. I have a light on mine that I have on the side, which gives you a shadow from the blade. And after you cut 3 or 4 hours, your eyes feel tired. You can trace that shadow down to where it meets the blade, and it's easier to see it rather than having a light around the blade. And of course, I don't use a magnifier. I've got one, but it just collects dust. I tell people I'm saving that for when I get old.
Yeah, a few more years. A few more years, George.
2 more years,
Yeah, be in the 90s.
something like that. Thank you.
Thank you.